What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Sehgal show, where we interview some unstoppable entrepreneurs who are dominating figures in their businesses. Sahil here, back again with another episode with an awesome, insane guest. Our today's guest was a fitness trainer. When he got into this coaching industry, he was struggling for 2 years until he got his first breakthrough when he was able to make $1 million in a year. Not only that, he was able to get multiple Tacoma Club awards, to CC awards for making over $25 million dollars in different industries and business models. He has trained over thousands of elite CEOs. Without wasting any more time, let's welcome Tanner Chidester to our show today. What's up, everyone? This is Sahil here, and welcome to the Sehgal show, where I'm gonna be interviewing some crazy entrepreneurs out there who started from scratch with no experience, resources, and connections, and then later on became unstoppable and dominating figures in their respective businesses. We're gonna dive deep into the mindset of these super successful entrepreneurs to find out how they did it and how you can model it too. It's time to pick their brains and uncover all the strategies and tactics which these entrepreneurs use to scale their businesses from nowhere to multiple 6, 7, and 8 figures. Welcome to the Sehgal show. Welcome, Tanner.
Yay, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure and honor to have you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you taking time.
Absolutely. Man, your journey is really inspiring. First of all, kudos to you, how you transitioned coming from a fitness industry and to the business coaching. So how did that transition actually happen? When was it and how did it came in?
Yeah. How far back do you want me to go? Do you want me to start like just right there? Do you want me to go back farther?
When you were at the fitness industry, you were working there as a
Sure.
fitness trainer?
Yeah. So I mean, I really started to build a company around 22. So that's when I stopped playing collegiate football. Didn't have any success for the first couple years, and then finally around 25 is when things started to take off. And I did $1 million that year. And then as soon as I hit $1 million, I got one of those ClickFunnels awards. You can see a couple behind me, but it's somewhere up here. And then trainers started reaching out and asking for help. And initially, I wasn't too keen on it because I've had bad experiences with coaches. I'm like, I don't really want to coach. I kind of hate coaches. They're kind of scammy, which is ironic now, right? But I had so many asks that eventually there was about $150,000, $200,000 just day one if I took on these clients. And so, I was 25 at the time. I had big dollar signs. And I said, all right, I'll do it. And then, it kind of exploded from there. But that was really how the transition happened. I was not looking for it at all. But, when you start having success, people ask. And so it's easy if you just want to say, hey, like, here's how I did this, and I'll show you how to replicate it. So
That's awesome, man. That's crisp. Well, what exactly happened at that time? Like, why coaching? There are so many other ways: crypto, e-com, Amazon, real estate. I'm sure. Was it just like somebody reached out to you and you started doing that and you started loving it, or what exactly happened at that time?
yeah, it was just really what I was shown. So sometimes people say, why are you a bus driver? Maybe your parents were bus drivers or something of that nature. So I just got out of college, or I was in college and I wasn't really sure what to do. Football had just ended. I was studying petroleum engineering, but I wasn't really enjoying it. And I had a conversation with my mentor, and he said, hey, you should drop out and be a fitness coach. And I said, well, why would you say that? He goes, you've been doing this your whole life. You work out all the time. You're in great shape. You love it. And so I said, okay. And that's really the only thing I needed. And then once I started having success, it was easier to branch off. But I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing today. If you had asked me that 5 years ago, I would have been laughing.
Absolutely, got it, got it. And your transition, like, basically happened from talking about concepts like macros, calories in fitness industry to business concepts like now revenue, ROAS, LTV, all
Yeah.
that stuff. How much overwhelming was it in the initial phases of the journey?
How much revenue was what? I'm sorry.
No, how much overwhelming was it when you were in the
Oh,
initial phase?
it's interesting. So it depends. Fitness coaching, I felt I was a therapist at times because there's a lot, these people are overweight, maybe they have low self-esteem. So you got to give a lot of kind of mental reinforcement. With business coaching, it's a lot less of that, but I guess you could say it's easier because they're a little more focused, but there's a lot more fulfillment. So you have to do a lot more. Here's how you say this. Here's how you do that. Here's how you set this up. So I would say the Upside to fitness is it's a harder or easier fulfillment, but it's a harder sell. The upside to business coaching was it's an easier sell, but it's a lot harder fulfillment, just a lot more time and effort. So, the size of my fulfillment team is a lot bigger for business coaching than it ever was for fitness. Fitness coaching, it's, hey, follow your plan. Did you follow your plan? No. All right, well, follow it this week. You don't have to do too much. It's just more of kind of mindset coaching and pushing them through it. So those are kind of the big differences. Yeah.
Gotcha. And when you were having those feelings, I'm sure you get them feelings of like quitting, dropping out from these plans when you start something. What was your biggest why in that phase of the journey?
Yeah, I mean, when you're broke, and you've grown up in an environment where I was bullied as a kid, I think that's the biggest thing is I didn't want to be a loser. Even as an adult, sometimes people close to me will say I'm very critical of others. I don't say anything critical, but I think because as a kid I was bullied so much, I'm really hypercritical to pick things up that I know someone would be bullied for. So if someone's overweight, I immediately kind of pick up on like, oh, like I think it in my head, like, oh, that person's overweight, or that person's short, or that person's not tall enough, or their clothes are not good. Like because as a kid I was bullied so much, I think that's really what drove me, because you have this insecurity that you're not good enough. But I also, after I started putting in work in sports and had success, I had the mindset that I could do anything I wanted. And I think that's part of what makes the most successful people on earth successful, because they have this massive insecurity, but they also have confidence they can be great. So when I was struggling, I just was so insecure about being told I was a loser that pain was greater than going forward. That's the easiest way I can describe it.
Wow, that's the deepest why. I can see that. A lot of people have been going through that phase and then they found something, they feel like they cracked the code.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because as a kid, it was very hurtful to be made
Yeah.
fun of. I was just kind of a strange kid. It wasn't on purpose. I just grew up with a bunch of sisters, and my parents were very conservative.
Hmm.
And, so I did tresses and tea party, and, my parents were just like, yeah, whatever. Just, he's with his sisters. It's fine. But as you get older, guys in my grade are like, what's wrong with you? Why are you saying this? Why are you so
Yeah.
soft? And so you get, it's painful at the time. But I will say, people who get bullied, they usually go on and they do very well in life. It's
Yeah.
interesting
All the
because
time.
they're told that they're weird or they're strange. And so you fight against it very hard. And the easiest way to fight against it, from what I saw, was to be good at sports, was to get better grades, was to get cuter girls. And
Hmm.
so now that I'm older in life and I've, quote unquote, done some of those things, people, they don't mess with you as much anymore. And so now it's changed a little bit, but I will say there's always that constant, fear of not being good enough. And I think that's important to have. So, sometimes I get mad about it I guess when I started, I was mad about it, but now I'm actually really grateful, because I don't know if was bullied, I'd be where I'm at. I think that was a huge catalyst to me being as driven as I am.
That changed into like a blessing and a curse. Then it was a curse at one point. Now you're living that life, and that's
Yeah.
amazing, man.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
When you were transitioning into this business industry or coaching industry, and specifically, what concepts you borrowed from the fitness industry that you saw that, like, yeah, I have this strategies, tactics, or whatever frameworks that you applied to the business or coaching industry at that time?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the same ways I got leads and I got clients, and how I did sales calls, marketing, all those types of things stayed the same. I think the really only big difference was the fulfillment. I mean, the fulfillment is much more difficult. So sometimes it's funny, they say the grass is always greener on the other side. When I was in the fitness industry, I said, "Oh man, if I do business coaching, I can sell, 10, $15,000 packages and this and this and that." But it comes with the whole other hurdle of fulfillment. The fulfillment's very intensive, because there's just so many things that go into building a business. But everything else was pretty much the same, if I'm being frank. Different messaging, different marketing, but how I ran ads and did messaging and emails and sales calls, all that was pretty much the same. So the biggest difference with those businesses is the back end. But what I found as I've gotten older is the best companies to build and get bigger have easier fulfillment. So you can build, you could build a 20, $30 million coaching company, but you don't see a lot get over that because the fulfillment is so taxing, right? And then the
Mm.
companies that get the biggest, typically tech or, private equity funds.
Yeah.
Think about it, private equity fund, it's Tanner, give me your money and I'll invest it for you and I'll give you some back.
Mm.
I mean, there is no fulfillment, right? It's just give us your money and go away. Same thing for SaaS products. Overall, I mean, there's probably some, but Uber, I mean, I don't ever really hit up Uber support. I just hit it,
Yeah.
I get in the car, I go away. The only time they probably get hit up is if the driver's a psycho or the passenger's a psycho. But besides that, it's pretty easy. So to answer your question, just the same minus fulfillment. Everything else is pretty similar, to be quite frank.
Mm. And I think a lot of industries know, like especially coaching and all, they don't even stay longer in the game. They stay for 4 or 5 years, and
Yeah, so yeah, that's a great point. So I think it's one of two reasons. I think one is either A, they get kind of burned out because they don't build a great team, or
Mhm.
two, they're just ready to move on to a bigger vehicle. So for example, I just stepped out about 3 weeks ago as CEO. I do a 15-minute advisory call per day and that's it.
Oh well.
That's all I do. But what I've realized is that it can still grow and get bigger, but you have to understand from this point, if it's doing, let's say 20 million a year and we get to 22 million, for me, that doesn't really mean anything. Right.
Mm.
So the average person, oh, another $2 million. But you have to understand that if I'm trying to get to 100 million or a billion and this vehicle, starts capping out around 30 million, or it gets a lot harder. So you're putting a lot more effort for very incremental gain. It makes sense to step out and get in a better vehicle. And you've seen that with, Hermosi just did that recently.
Yeah.
We've also seen that with, I think Sam Ovens just did
Sam
it.
Owens did it. Yeah.
And you'll see some other people, but that's what I realize is it's not so much that you can't keep growing it, but it's, how much leverage do you have? And you have a lot more leverage in other vehicles. So I think the skill set and building it has been super influential and helpful for me. But as I move on to other things, if I can get in a bigger vehicle, say, for example, I started a fund. I mean, that'd be so easy to start a fund where I could just go and find people who have a bunch of money and say, hey, my fund is going to get you higher returns, or the fund I'm partnering with will get you higher returns than this fund. You should give your money to me and you're done. But I'm a marketer. So getting clients and getting leads, those things come very natural to me versus maybe some traditional equity holders. That's just a random example.
Yeah.
But I think that's why you see it. So the people either leave to go to the bigger opportunity, or they step out because they didn't build a good team and they just want to get out of it. For me, I have such a great team. It didn't really make sense for me to quit. It made sense to either sell it or keep it going. And I chose to keep it going.
Gotcha. Definitely makes sense. And as you touch base on that one, I want to come to that one. Your elite CEOs, that's what your program is. So that is still running, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
W-
Still running.
How was it born at that time? Like when you stepped into this business industry, was that was the first step or first coaching program that you made, or how and when exactly did it
Yeah.
come?
So when I stepped in, it was first the fitness program. Then I started helping trainers. So that was what I call the fitness CEOs division. And
Mm.
then from there, it moved into elite CEOs because we started helping people outside the fitness industry. So we just made like little quick changes to the name. But yeah, that was in terms of business coaching, that was the first program I ever made. And we've made updates over the years, obviously, but we've been in the game 5 years now. And I don't really see us going anywhere anytime soon. So it's just continuing to improve on what we have and expand. So the cool part now is we're starting to look into licensing deals, and we're starting to we want to add a Spanish division in Q2, and we're starting to add in done for you offers that different team members run. But a lot of our clients are like, hey, I want a sales team, or hey, I want a messaging team, stuff like that. So it's been pretty cool to watch, but it can still grow. And I think it will get to 30, 40 million a year with the offers combined. But again, if my ceiling, or I'm trying to get to, 9 figures or $1 billion, it doesn't make sense for me to continue to put my time here. It makes more sense for me to advise and let my brothers grow it. And then I can move on to the next thing. That's at least my viewpoint. I could be wrong.
Gotcha. Now, it comes with experience. Yeah, obviously you have to go with the flow and see what things work and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
What's your advice on to someone like they should start and stop doing when it comes to especially high ticket coaching space? Because my industry, my clients are mostly into the coaching, being a coach as well.
Yeah. I think the number one thing to stop doing is worrying about everything, or, waking up and having a whole checklist of things to do. For me, when people say, what did you do all day when you were growing your company? I
Yeah.
just got up and I worked, and I did what I had to do to get sales. So, for me, it was how can I make more money? Sales calls. How do I get sales calls? Messaging.
Mm.
And then I had clients. So all I did all day was I was either messaging, taking sales calls, or talking to clients. That's it. I wasn't posting content. I wasn't editing videos. I wasn't, doing podcasts and all these other things. And you can, but I think it depends at what level you do it. So, people will see me now and we're posting content like crazy. I mean, we're doing 4 or 5 posts a day on some of my socials, but you have to understand I have 11 editors. I have an executive creative director. I wouldn't have done that in the beginning. So I just think it's people really need to focus on the major things that will move the business. Then once they get there, then they can start adding in other things. I think a lot of people do too much too soon, because they don't really understand how to get out of the business. The only way to get out is you have to make money. So then you can hire people to start doing less. But if you're doing activities that aren't directly increasing the cash flow of the business, it's not a good use of your time. So the first year I ran my company, I posted 0 times on Instagram for a year, not even once. I just, because I just knew the amount of time it took me to post it and edit it and write a caption, it wasn't worth it because I was making all my money setting up calls through messaging.
So you were doing all raw, like a cold outreach and everything.
Oh yeah, man. I
Oh,
was I was ham all day. Yeah. So I mean, I would get some warm leads. I did shout outs at one point. I started running ads once I really got the hang of it.
yeah.
But yeah, when I got up to $50,000 a month, just DMing people.
Oh,
That's it. And it was just cold DMs mostly. And then I'd push them to a triage call, and then I'd do a sales call. So that was the hardest time ever, for sure. Because when you don't have warm leads, you got to really work the leads. I mean, cold leads are, they take a little more effort. But it was a good skill that I learned, and, it really helped me down the road, obviously.
absolutely. A lot of time we just make it complicated. I was watching a Alex video as well one day. He was like, "What's your routine look like?" He's like, "I just wake up. I don't take cold showers. I don't do all that yoga stuff and all that. I just take a cup of my coffee and just get to the work."
Yeah. And you can, I mean, if you want to do it, by all means, but if you spend more time working, you're going to beat other people. And
True.
so if you can just get right into your work and be productive and start going, you're going to beat someone else who, takes 2 hours to prepare to start working. And I think the less you need to get in a workflow state, the better. Just like working out, you don't want to have to take pre-workout every single time you go to the gym. Sure, you can take it sometimes, but if you can just get up at any time and go to the gym and start pumping the weights, it's going to be a lot more realistic for the long term versus the short term where everything has to be perfect. Gym has to be this temperature. Got to have your workout clothes, pre-workout meal, all that stuff turns you into almost a prima donna.
Got you. Makes sense, definitely. And as you were talking about the levels and different, obviously at different levels, you have different mindset and different things you talk about, you take into consideration. Like, what differences you see between people who are making, I would say, 6, 7, and 8 figure? What are the major differences you see at different levels?
Yeah. So, I mean, 6 to 7 figures is really just, I think, effort. To be honest, I know people who can get to 100,000 a month with 2 or 3 employees. It's just effort and skill. So, like, 6 to 7 figures is how good are you at messaging? How good are you at sales calls? And how many hours are you working? I think that's a lot of effort. 6 to 7 figures. So, or I should say 7 to 8 figures, excuse me. So 100,000 a month to a million a month. That's going to be more team. So
Mhm.
it's how good are you at hiring, training, recruiting, things of that nature. Um, if you're not good at getting other people to do things for you and keeping them aligned with your company and your vision, you're never going to get to 8 figures. Most of the CEOs I meet, they can't get past 100K because they're not good leaders. They think
Mhm.
that they just hire someone and show them once and that's what it is. More times than not, you have to repeat yourself over and over and over and over all the time. I mean, it's a constant cycle of management. So just like clients, you're repeating yourself to your team. I think once you get 8 to 9 figures, it's just the vehicle. I mean, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Um, you know, regardless of what anyone says, I promise you, if you're trying to get to 9 figures, it's probably not going to happen in a coaching business. It's very rare, right? Because the amount of fulfillment and execution is just a lot higher. Ad costs get astronomical. You don't get enough clients in. It's not the highest longevity for clients. You know, it's hard to keep clients year after year after year because it's information. Information, once people get it, it becomes infinitely less valuable. So I think for most people, though, they're struggling to get 7 to 8 figures because they don't know how to lead and build teams. And that's one of the skills I've learned. It's not like if you want to grow big companies, you want to make a lot of money, you want to have a lot of impact, it's really not about you at all. It's about how you're assembling teams and hiring and training and managing. You know, because if you can't get other A players to do work for you, then you're always inside the business and it's going to cap at your level. But if you can completely separate from the business and get other people to go in and build it for you, you know, that's how you can get to higher levels. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it hit me very hard. I personally hit my 100K months like with just 2 employees and all organic. I didn't even jump into the paid ads, and that was it. And now going towards 7 figures is like, yeah, team building and team training. It's just a pivoting one thing, I think. That's
Yeah.
what I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was planning. So you answered my second question as well. I was going to ask this follow-up question. That was my selfish question. How should I scale from 6 to 7 figures? But I think you all answered
Yeah.
it.
I mean, yeah. So like, you know, if you're just trying to get to the $100,000 a month, it's really just more effort and more skill. So because when someone goes, well, what's the difference between this person and that person? A lot of times it's just they're better at messaging, they're better at sales calls, and then they're running maybe a little bit of paid ads, but very little, right? It's just having a little bit of lead flow. The people I see who do, you know, closer to 10,000 a month or 10,000 a month, it's just their skill level's not there. And they think it is, but they're not willing to get better. So you have to understand, for me, when I finally started a business, I'd done door-to-door sales. I'd been a server. I'd been an athlete. So I knew how to work and I knew sales. I was very good at communicating and I know what to say to get people to do what I want. So it's about asking, you know, something that really gifted me in sales is I know the question to ask to get the answer I'm looking for. So a lot of people, they don't really know what to say, but when you know what answer you want, it's easy to know what question to ask, right? So if I want you to say, you know, you're busy, you know, for example, let's say I need you to say you're busy, right? I'll just be like, hey, what do you do for work? You do this. Oh, got it. Does that keep you busy all the time? You're going to be like, yeah, of course. Like, you're not going to say no because no one wants to be lazy. So that was maybe a bad example off the top of my head, but I just had a systematic process of knowing what to ask and getting people to give me the answer I was looking for, which made my process really efficient. So if you're trying to go 6 to 7 figures, I would really you only need maybe 2 to 4 people. You need like a coach, you need a setter / sales rep, maybe another one. And then like, I don't know, someone like, I don't know, maybe one other person for whatever you need. Like you only need like a couple people. So the rest of it is just, are you getting enough volume? And then how good are you at messaging and sales calls to get enough of those sales to get to 100,000 a month? That's really all I would focus on. And if you're not there, get help from someone who really is going to help you with that process. Because, you know, whenever you run ads, people will say, oh, my leads are all terrible, but are they? Because we probably get the same leads you do. We just make more sales. So then it's the question to ask is, what does that process look like?
That's deep. I got it. In that way, what the personal branding, does it play a role? Like where exactly would you put that in? Like right at the 7-figure initial mark or?
I don't even think you need to. I mean, I don't even think you need to until you're at 8 figures. There's 2 things in personal branding. So it's very interesting. So you have 2 ways that you can build a big personal brand. Number one is you just post viral type content. So an example for me would be a Mr. Beast, a Logan Paul. You know, you even throw some OnlyFans people in there, right? Like they're just posting content that it's not necessarily, you know, about building business or, you know, education, which I think most people consider boring. It's, you know, it's entertainment, right? Entertainment is what people consume the most because I guess they're bored with their lives. I'm not really sure, but that's just the most popular. So you can go that route, right? If you're not going to go that route or you're not there where your content's just popping off, virally, then the next thing, I think you just have to actually do something that people respect you for. So like, I think it's been interesting to watch, but Gary Vee, for example, people respect him and he gets a lot of content out there because he's actually done cool shit. Like he's built crazy big businesses. I think his agency does like 350, 400 million a year. And that's just one of his companies. Hermosi just blew up recently.
Yeah.
Yes, he's done some incredible things, but the other thing is he's a really good speaker. Very good at communicating. In fact, I look at how he talks sometimes. I'm friends with him. I'm like, man, I need to be better at how I communicate. So for me or for you, I think once you do something incredible, it's a lot easier because it carries more weight. Because, for example, today I posted something on Facebook and I said, here's a bunch of conversations I've had with billionaires. Just because if I say the same thing as a billionaire, you'll listen to the billionaire because he's a billionaire, right? I can say the same thing, but you're going to take it more seriously because the billionaire said it. Why? He's accomplished more. So to answer your question, I think what you should focus on is if you're not going to go, the influencer route, which I don't think that's you, then you need to continue to create something worthy of people wanting to know you. So when you say things, it carries weight. And the reason people listen to Alex is because he's done something that carries weight. He's a young guy. His net worth is over 9 figures. That's unheard of. It's not normal. And so for me, that's why I'm continuing. Like, you're seeing me posting more stuff now because I have a big team, but you're going to also see me continue to try to grow big companies and do stuff that makes it, wow, Tanner Chidester did that. That's amazing. Like, man, I should listen when Tanner talks. If I didn't have the team I had now, like, I'd still be doing the same thing I just told you. Like, I would still probably wouldn't post much content. I would just keep putting my head down until I was someone relevant of knowing. But I know if I continue down the path I'm going, 20 years from now, like, I should be there, right? I should be someone that's like, hey, Tanner Chidester is a really good guy at business. He's done a lot of things. He's helped a lot of people. He has high net worth. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if I were you, I would go more to the Alex route where you just continue to build something until people have to listen to you because you're just so far ahead and so much better than everyone else. I think that's the real way to do it. If you haven't, created anything amazing, it's hard to speak and have it carry weight unless you're a really good speaker. And there's very few people, who are Jordan Peterson level or, Alex level. There's another guy. He's a Jewish. Is it Shapiro? Ben Shapiro? I think that's who it is. Anyways, those guys are really good speakers. They don't have maybe as much quote unquote financial success or like business success, but they're so good at speaking. It's kind of like Andrew Tate, same thing.
Yeah.
Andrew Tate's like a great speaker, regardless if you like him or not. So people pay attention. But if you're not a great speaker, then what else can you do? And I think it's like just create cool shit, like big stuff.
True. And it's from initial stages of journey. I think communication is something which you need even at 6 figures and 7. Obviously, at above level, you need more. But even in the initial stages, you need a lot communication. That's what it is. I think that's what you sell. Your words, as you said, power of words, which can bend the people to your will. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
100%.
Yeah. And I just had one more follow-up question. When jumping into the paid ad, because this is where I'm looking into it right now. What's your favorite platform, or what do you recommend for a person to 6 to 7? Like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram?
So for me, the first thing is understanding that ads amplify what's working and not working.
True.
So if you're struggling, messaging people organically, you're going to struggle with paid ads messaging wise. Like if you're struggling with sales calls, you're still going to struggle with sales calls. So first thing is making sure that process is intact. For me, we've always done the best running ads to Messenger, whether that's Facebook or Instagram, because that replicates our organic process. So I have a pretty big team, but for me, that was always helpful when we'd run an ad, they'd click, they'd go inside Messenger, and then our VSL link would automatically pop up. They could watch it and book a call, but if they didn't, we could go in and message them. Just so you have a little bit of context, right now, we run most of our ads to Instagram. We just feel like it's a higher quality person. We used to run almost all of it to Facebook, but I don't know, just the lead quality on there for us personally seems to not be as high. So, based on your answer or your question, excuse me, where should I run it? I mean, if you only had X amount of money, I'd probably do Instagram and do some type of like IG DM ad where you can go and follow up with people. Because when you run it straight to a page, you're going to get more people to the page. But if they don't take the action you want, they don't input their email or phone number, their name, and they don't book a call, well, then all you can do at that point is email people. And email just isn't that effective compared to messaging. It works, it helps. But I mean, we get way more clients from messaging than we ever do just from email.
I was having opposite. I was thinking like Instagram lead quality is not that good. Facebook lead quality is way better.
Well, there you go. There you go. I mean, if it's not for you, test it. But we seem to have the most success specifically for like business type offers with Instagram.
You're talking about B2B coaches, right? So coaches who want to make 6 figures.
Yeah, B2B. But I mean, it could vary by offer, right? But if if you test it and you get better results from Facebook, by all means do that. Just for us specifically, we've spent like close to 20 million on ads, and the first couple years we ran predominantly to Facebook, but now we run almost nothing to Facebook and run it to Instagram. Oh. So take that for what it's worth. It's, I would always test. If you're able to test and, you split the spend out, Facebook spend, Instagram spend, you track how many leads and apps you get. Yeah. But I just know for us, like we've seen more success with Instagram the last 2 years than we have with Facebook.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. That's cool. That's a good thing to test it out. I'm gonna do that. Yeah. What's the next thing for you, man? What are you working on these days?
Yeah, man, I don't know. I'm about to start traveling the world.
I'm You're 30, right? If I'm not wrong. You're 30, right?
I just turned 31, unfortunately. So I'm a little old.
I'm turning in next 31. month.
So this year, I'm really not going to be too focused on business. And the reason being is most of the individuals I spoke to told me to really take some time off before I dive into the next thing, to really think about what I'm going to dive into. And the more I've done it, I think that's good advice, because when you're not constantly doing, ideas flow to you a lot easier. You're a little bit more in a learning state. And so I'm just going to give myself some permission for the next few months to travel and read and talk to people and really decide. I have a couple ideas of things that I'm considering, but I'm just not sure. But I'm going to give myself some time. So like I said, my companies are still running. They're still doing well. I'll still be advising, but I am looking for kind of that next venture that I think can get a lot bigger. And I'm not too sure what it is yet, but I'm looking into it.
Cool, man. That's good. All the best for that one. Where can listeners find you online if they want to learn more about you? Where can they?
Yeah, so I'm trying to take YouTube pretty seriously. I'm hopeful. I'm actually going to see Daryl Eves on Sunday, who wrote music and stuff. So I'm going to spend a day with him and hopefully crack the nut on that thing. So I think it's like 17,000 subs right now, nothing crazy, but I'm really trying to push it. So if anyone wants content, that's going to be where I'm putting most of my effort and trying to put my best stuff. So YouTube would be great.
Definitely. I'm going to be dropping links in the show note for the people out there who are watching us or listening us on this one. And what's the one piece of advice you can share to our listeners before we round this up?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just, especially for beginners, is don't quit. I know that sounds very cliche, but I think the thing I think about all the time when people ask about my journey is, from 23 to 25, I was working 16 to 18 hour days and I made $2,000 in 2 years. Oh, wow. It was terrible. From 25 to 27, I made millions of dollars and I was working the same hours. So if I quit at 25, which I almost did quit, I almost went back to school. Instead of, doing 50 to $60 million in sales, where we're at now, I would only have made $500,000 the last 5 years. So 60 million, 50 million, 500,000. It's a massive difference, all because of a small decision. So I'm a really big believer that as long as you keep going, you will figure it out. Unless you have a mental disability, literally, you will figure it out. So no matter how bad it gets, just see it through. Because I know for me, 2 years doesn't sound long, but when you're going through it, it's forever. And so just no matter how bad it gets, try to keep pushing through, be around positive people. Because, the reward is worth it. The reward is always worth it. It's just in the moment, it's terrible, but it's always worth it on the other side. So for anyone who's struggling, who's listening to this, or you're considering quitting, or you haven't had success yet, I really highly recommend continuing to push, because that's what the reward is getting to the other side. It's not going back and, getting your job that you can always get. So
Absolutely. That's a gold nugget out there. Best advice. Powerful one. And your network is also your net worth all the time. So surround yourself among the people who are way ahead than you.
100%. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man, for coming on, giving up this valuable time. And people who are watching us live or listening us will be coming up with another episode very soon. Till then, stay tuned. Take care. Bye, everyone.